Hi guys, it's Cameron White here with White Light Astrology, and welcome back to your favorite weekly horoscope, What the Fuck is Going On in the Universe for November 11th through November 18th of 2019. I just got over, I'm pretty sure, having food poisoning for the past 3 days, and I still feel pretty miserable, but I'm tired of not doing videos. I like doing videos, and I didn't do any for a month and a half, so I wanted to make sure I did this one. This isn't really a crazy week. There's not a whole lot going on, but yeah, I'm here. We're gonna just keep it casual. We're gonna keep it cool. I think that this week is a lot more simple, a lot more chill, even though starting this week off on Monday with the full moon happening in between Monday and Tuesday in Mercury Cazimi, I think that there's going to be a lot more things kind of running about, but nothing too much, nothing too overwhelming with that. So let me pull up the highlights. And yeah, basically this week's highlights is literally just starting this week off with the Mercury Cazimi. The thing is with this Mercury Cazimi, because Mercury's also transiting the sun too, so if you were able to actually look at the sun, Mercury would go right in front of it. I know NASA did a whole live event for it. You guys should definitely check it out, because it is cool to see. I think this one's really interesting because, as I talked about with this Mercury retrograde in Scorpio, it really is about what gunk is getting unsurfaced, what is getting unearthed, what is coming out from the ground and bubbling up and kind of regurgitating itself. I really like using that analogy for Scorpio because one thing that reminds me of Scorpio is the La Brea tar pits, tar pits, old dinosaurs used to just get stuck in them. And it kind of symbolizes for me, I guess in a good analogy, Scorpio in a sense of where can you get stuck in gunk? Where can things get caught up and trapped in this sort of, a fix, I like using, tar too, because it's a fixated liquid. And that's Scorpio, a fixed water sign. It's very, very solid and very durable for it being still in a liquid state in a sense. And this Mercury Cazimi, it's this is good. This is when this stuff does get brought up to the surface. But I also think that this Mercury Cazimi also gives us an opportunity to kind of let it go. And I know we're still talking about the highlights, but on top of that, with the full moon in Taurus happening, I think that's about, I talked a lot about this last week too, but it really does have a lot to do with where are we finding security? Where are we going to find some stability? And you have to remember, Uranus is in Taurus right now too. It's going to look a little bit different. It's not going to be, the old traditional way and the concept of which we think value or stability or security looks like. This has to be innovative. This has to be different. It's going to be uncomfortable, but Monday it's all about really addressing the truth. And then basically besides that, this week on, Wednesday, we have Venus squaring Neptune. And, I think this transit's going to be interesting for this week because while Venus is in Sag wanting to discover and explore and really valuing, a good way to look at it is Venus is all about value, indulgence. It's really what makes things fun in a sense. And when it's in Sagittarius in the sign that is very exploratory or explorative, I don't know what word I'm trying to use, exploring, I guess, but Venus wants to explore, Venus wants to travel, Venus wants to idealize and imagine things and create scenarios that, have some type of hope or optimism or that, Venus in Sag likes to distract itself with, having plans to go somewhere or thinking ahead of something. It's when it's kind of if you, have you ever planned, if you're moving somewhere or have you ever, planned your dream house? That's Venus in Sag. What do I want to create? What do I want to build? What can I, operate from? However, with it squaring Neptune, it's kind of just where can we be a little bit more realistic, but more of if we're going to dream big, why limit ourselves to what boundaries that we can create within ourselves? And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. I feel like I really just addressed this whole fucking week, just really well put right there, but that's just for the highlights this week. And so let's go ahead and jump into this horoscope. To go back to Monday, today, I'm kind of doing this horoscope last second. Usually I do these on Saturday, but it's Monday today, so I'm feeling this Mercury Cazimi thing. But like I said, with Mercury conjoining the sun, what's being revealed, what's being brought up. And this is Scorpio stuff. It's not always easy or simply put. Sometimes it's raw and sometimes people can handle it better than others, but it's really about addressing, what things would have been hidden or buried away and what's being brought up to the surface now and how do we address that? And this is the full moon. I talked a lot about this in my Mercury retrograde video. Like, this is when things appear. This is when things light up. This is when, things become they become into our immediate awareness. And with this being in Taurus, this is about finding some stable ground, finding some security, going, hey, what do I value? Where can I feel a sense of tangibility with, especially something like Scorpio, like I talked about earlier with like the La Brea tar pits. Like, tar is very sticky and gunky. It doesn't really give you like a foundation to work off of, versus this full moon in Taurus is kind of like it's kind of like quicksand. Like, you kind of have to run really fast over it, and that's how you'll get your balance on top of it, versus just standing there, you'll sink down underneath. But after we get off this full moon, I mean, technically the full moon's Monday night. So then as we go into Tuesday, we still have that full moon. So this isn't just like a all-in-one type deal. We're going to be going through this for Monday and Tuesday. So just let things come to you. But on Tuesday, we also have Mars sextiling Jupiter. And I know I talked about that last week, but it's the exact aspect is on Tuesday. And, with Mars in Libra feeling a little imbalanced, not knowing which side to, lean more with, or leaning too far on one side and not the other, Mars having some support from Jupiter is kind of giving us that, like, sense of ambition of like, hey, we may not know what to do right now, or maybe with Mars in Libra we can be struggling with taking that action, with having that initiative, but Jupiter and Sagittarius being so buoyant of like, what, like, we have dreams, we have hopes, we have aspirations, we have things that we visualize that we want to create. Like, Mars sextiling Jupiter is kind of like, hey, you may not know what to do with everything right now, but what are the things that for sure that you're excited for, that you want to do? And maybe you could start pursuing the other things that you have to pursue in that way. That, how can you get excited about doing these things? What is exciting for you right now to do that you can occupy your time with, so you can at least be doing something in a sense? And I think that comes a lot from this full moon in Taurus too. Like, like, this is Scorpio season. Some people are thriving through it. Some people are going through hell, and that's just life for everyone at any given time. But with Scorpio, the main theme really is like what truth is being brought out, and it can be difficult knowing which direction to take or what path to take when you get new information. And I feel like this Mars sextiling Jupiter kind of gives us, we don't have to just because it's on our plate right now doesn't mean we have to eat it. We can work our way around it. We can work on our side dishes before we just eat the entree or like the main course. But then as we go into Wednesday on the 13th, the moon's going to be entering Gemini. This is when a lot more ideas are going to be kicked up. This is a lot more talkative, after we have that full moon in Taurus, and it's kind of like, counting our stock. What do we have? What do we not have? And as the moon goes in Gemini, this is kind of where our ideas start to formulate a little bit better. This is where our mind, after we get new information that is solidified, that is tangible, this is when we can start making better ideas or having better ideas of what to do or what to think, or creating different scenarios in our head so we have some type of plan of action. But also on Wednesday is when we have Venus squaring Neptune, and and with Venus, like I talked about earlier in Sag, there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of, like Venus conjoining Jupiter is happening next week, and there's a lot of excitement here. This is like that time where that Jupiter and Sag energy kind of comes alive, where it's like, what have we been planning? What have we been wanting? What have we been visualizing? What the fuck do we just want to create? And Venus is finally starting to come up closer to Jupiter, being like, hey, like, how can we attract ourselves more to this? How can we bring more of this into our lives? Like, how can I seek more of this out? And Jupiter's looking to give more of that to you. But that's not now. That's going to be next week. But as Venus is getting closer in Sagittarius, this kind of gives us that, sense of what are we looking forward to. But as it squares Neptune, I think this does get a little bit interesting, because Neptune's all about illusion and duality, and, things aren't always what they appear on the surface. And like, I mean, you guys know me, I talk a lot of shit on Neptune, but it's not always a bad thing to let go of the parameters that you set yourself up for when it comes to what you're trying to visualize or what you're trying to create. Like, what box do you limit yourself with of your situation to where you can't see any other scenario play out. And I think this Venus square Jupiter is kind of about testing the limits of like, hey, what are we wanting to attract ourselves to? And what do we think is possible versus what's not possible? And with Neptune here, there is a side of this that's like, you're not going to be fully in the truth. There is something here that won't necessarily materialize the way that you're thinking of, and that's okay. But I think this is a really important time to expand your mind a little bit more as to what can be created, because this is Venus. She's going to get what she wants. It's in Sag. She can find it. Neptune and Pisces just kind of like, well, are you just going to stand there? Are you just going to be scared of going out and adventuring out on your own and finding what you enjoy? Or are you going to, defy the boundaries that you set yourself up in and actually explore what possibilities are out there for you? And then as we get into Thursday on the 14th, that's when the moon, now still in Gemini, actually makes an opposition to Venus and Jupiter, where this is where what I was just talking about starts to come up a little bit more. The moon in Gemini is like, having an opposition, like a mano-y-mano against Venus, and then boom, Jupiter, and it's kind of like having to address, like the moon in Gemini is just all about asking the right questions to Venus and Sag and Jupiter and Sag. Like Venus and Sag is like, I have all these ideas and all these places I want to go. The moon in Gemini is like, well, how are you going to get there? What are the logistics of it? Why are you doing it? How, the who, what, when, where, why, and how. And as the moon applies to an opposition to Venus, this is kind of like, hey, maybe this is a good time to go over your ideas and make sure that they have some tangibility, that they will actually work theoretically. And as the moon opposes Jupiter, this is where it shifts to not necessarily like the moon opposing Venus is kind of like, okay, our emotions lined up with our values, is, are what we feeling right now matched up with what we're admiring and what we like want to attract ourselves to. And then as the moon opposes Jupiter, it's like, are our feelings in alignment with our beliefs? Like, do we really feel this way? Like, is this a part of our belief system, or is this something that we're just temporarily feeling, something that's just being reflected off of us right now? And I think that's going to be pretty important to look at. I think that, that's an important aspect to look at in your life in itself. But during this week, and also on Thursday, Venus and Jupiter get about 10 degrees away from each other, so they actually start really beginning to conjoin, and this is just where you start asking those bigger questions. You start really getting down to, the nitty-gritty of what you want and what you believe. Then Friday, the moon enters Cancer, and that's about it, like really on Friday. And you guys know what I say about the moon in Cancer. Fill it out. What's worth protecting? What's worth nurturing? It's kind of like, now that we have all these answers, now that we've asked these questions, how do we feel about it? Sometimes we don't know how we feel about a situation until we ask the right question, and until then, you don't know. And I think we got to ask the right questions this week in order for Friday for us to feel it out, because Friday is really just about feeling it out. And I think that speaks a little bit with Venus and Sag. Like, go and have fun this weekend. Go do something. The moon will be in Cancer, so it'll be a little bit emotional. Maybe this is a time to maybe just nurture yourself, but go explore. Go do something that's fun. It's Venus's day. It's Friday, but with the moon in Cancer, focus on what's important. As we jump into Saturday on the 16th, or this weekend on the 16th and the 17th, that's when the moon makes its opposition to Saturn, but it also trines Mercury and Neptune. And I think this is a little interesting, because as the moon is actually opposing Saturn, kind of going like, is like, with what I'm protecting, can I get everything that I want? Can I have my cake and eat it too? The moon in Cancer is focused on like the necessity. And so is Saturn in Capricorn. And Saturn in Capricorn's like, hey, what do we need at the end of the fucking day? Like, what's tangible and realistic, and what's important? Like, what's the minimal here? And the moon in Cancer is kind of like, well, these are my needs that need to be addressed. However, as it's trining Mercury and trining Neptune, I think this is when we can be a little bit more open about actually understanding what our needs are, because we all need food and water and shelter, but like, you need to be honest with yourself. You need to enjoy, what you're doing. You need to be clear about what's going on in your life. Like, there's a lot of other aspects to what need looks like for every individual person that, it's hard for me to just sit here and explain, but like, this is the moon in Cancer, this is trining Mercury retrograde in Scorpio. Like, there is a sense of like really realizing some deeper needs and some deeper things that need to be addressed. It is trining Neptune, so there is some fogginess to here, but that fogginess can be played with a little bit. It makes things a little bit more open to being receptive and to being understood, if that makes sense. And as we go into Sunday, it's kind of like, we get off this moon in Cancer stuff and really feeling it out, ingesting that. And we go into Sunday with the moon in Leo, and that kind of feels a lot more confident. That feels a lot more like, hey, I'm worthy of taking these action steps. Like, I can actually, not only visualize and feel, but address my needs, be honest with myself, have the courage to, still, whatever it is you're going through, whether that's, standing up for yourself or, making different changes or putting yourself first or, whatever you're doing. That moon in Leo is really gaining a lot of confidence with, what your actions are. And so Sunday, feel yourself, reflect. It's Sunday. It's time to chill. It's the sun's day. Like, just be yourself. Just feel it out. And with the moon in Leo, like, how do you feel? Do you feel confident? Do you still feel insecure? And what needs to be addressed? Because with the moon being in Leo, like, it's being brought into the light. But then as we go into Monday, as we start next week, like, really the only aspect we have going on is the moon is going to start making a square to Mercury. And this is where, and I talked about this, I think, last week or the week before with the moon in Aquarius making a square to Mercury retrograde in Scorpio. It's like, we can have all these different ideas and they can kind of, go against what we want to do. It's like, yeah, we have other, we could figure this out, but it may not be what I want to do. The moon in Leo is like, I know what I want to do, but Mercury retrograde in Scorpio may not exactly allow that. And it's kind of like we kind of have to use this sense of confidence to kind of get over that Mercury retrograde in Scorpio hump. Like, Mercury retrograde in Scorpio can be a little bit stingy. And just like, someone who's trying to make a snarky comment to you, you don't let them just, say it. Like, you say something confident. You say something true. You be you be that Leo energy and be like, okay, like, I don't fucking care. This is like, you can say that and do that all you want. This is the way I want things going, and that's the way that we're going to do it. So on Monday, you're going to deal with some issues that go against the grain, but that's not to say that that's going to, overcome whatever energy you're trying to put to it. And that's kind of like what this week looks like. It's not really all that super crazy, but as we get into next week, that's when things start stirring up a little bit more. Because as we go into next week, that's when we have Mars entering Scorpio. Thank fucking God. Mars enters Scorpio. Mars in Libra is so annoying. And we have Mercury stationing direct. We have the Sun going into Sagittarius. We have Venus conjoining Jupiter. What an exciting week to look forward to next week. And I guarantee you I'll be feeling 1,000 times better than I do right now. And I think next week is when Mars goes into Scorpio. Like, it's time to put into action. Mars has been in Libra. It's been like, what do we do? What's going on? I don't know. Mars in Scorpio is kind of like, I don't give a fuck what's going on. This is what I'm doing. Mercury stations direct. It's like, all right, the answers are clear now. Now it's time to go back over everything that just fucking happened again. And the Sun goes into Sagittarius. Let's have fun. Let's not give a fuck. Let's explore. And Venus conjoins Jupiter. Like, fuck, both the benefics, like, in one of their, like, domiciles, like, conjoining each other. Like, beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. That's so much fun. That's things really coming alive. That's, like, literally blessings being handed down to you. And we'll be talking way more about that next week. But until then, thank you guys so much for being here. I love you guys. You really are the best, especially if you watched all the way to the end. But I will be seeing you guys next week. Take care. Hopefully you feel better. Thank you guys for all your love and prayers, and I'll see you next time.